Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you wherever in the world you are joining us from. I'm Sheila, the organizer of TEDxKerrisdale. Welcome to TEDxKerrisdaleWomen 2020. To begin, I'd like to introduce a very special feature. Right now, our caregivers are working in heroic ways. They're on the front lines of battling this pandemic, putting themselves in the path of this virus. Their dedication, commitment, and courage deserve our deepest gratitude and admiration. It is an honor for us to feature them as part of our tradition of opening with the national anthem. So to all the healthcare workers that selflessly give of themselves day after day, we thank you. Your service to us is saving lives and making a difference. And now, please rise for O Canada by the Nova Scotia Nurses Union.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Jyoti Mistry, and I'd like to welcome you to TEDxKerrisdaleWomen 2020. TEDxWomen is a series of talks by an astonishing group of speakers who will share bold ideas, tough truths, and jaw-dropping creative visions. It is about the power of women and girls to be creators and change makers. This is our first women's event, and we are grateful to eXp Realty, whose generous contribution brought this event to you all today. The theme for this TEDx Women's event is Fearless. And for the next few hours, we'll experience together the many ways that fearlessness is playing out in our lives. We live at a time that some would describe as fearful. There's a lot of uncertainty, a global pandemic, a worsening climate crisis, and a rising issue of racial injustice. And in this period of uncertainty, the greatest peril is to retreat or become immobilized. Amid the physical, cultural, and economic challenges affronting us at every level, from personal to global, now is the time to engage. At TEDxKerrisdaleWomen, we'll hear from bold leaders who are stepping forward and taking action. We're handing over the platform to fearless women, thinkers, and influencers so they can share ideas that we can turn into fearless actions that benefit ourselves and our community. I'm so excited for today's program. Our speakers have been hard at work for weeks, crafting and lovingly refining their ideas and recording them in diverse and challenging conditions due to COVID restrictions. On behalf of the team at TEDxKerrisdale, I would like to extend a big thank you to our sponsors, Leaders of Tomorrow Academy, Kama Naturals, Fueling with Flavor, and Leaders Media. None of this would be possible without your contribution. We also gratefully acknowledge that we live, work, and play in the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples. Our hope is that the talks we share with you today empower you to find the strength and clarity needed to navigate this ever-changing world. So let these fearless speakers invite you to reflect and imagine a brave new world. Let them inspire you to act and become fearless in your actions. They only have the best of intentions. Our first session will feature inspiring speakers who add dimension and understanding of the many challenges that women face around the world. Their talks truly exemplify this session's theme, which is Bring It On. Our first speaker shares 3 incredible stories of love, loss, and laughter, where she was able to shift her relationship with fear and choose not to be defined by her story. Let's welcome Danielle Buchanan with her talk, Stopping the Clock on Fear.
In the amount of time I have to give this talk today will be the exact amount of time I was given left to live. What I'm choosing to share today may be triggering for some. So I'm wanting to let you know to take care of your heart. My story starts April 17th, 2004. It's a day I will never forget. I went on a last-minute trip to Cancun, Mexico. I was 19 and fearless. I was so spontaneous, I didn't even think to take travel insurance. When we got to Mexico, we put our bathing suits on as fast as we could because it was the most beautiful day. When we got down to the beach, we started drinking. And then we met these guys, where we decided to start doing shots. I got so caught up in the moment that I decided that it'd be a great idea to go on a jet ski. As I'm in the water with this guy I just met on the beach, the waves were coming and crashing on this jet ski. I decided I wanted to drive it. So I got on it and I went as fast as the jet ski could go. And all I remember is going through the waves and being pulled back and praying that this was just a nightmare. My brain was telling my legs to move, but my legs weren't moving. I could hear people screaming. And when I opened my eyes, I realized that this was my reality. When I got pulled to shore, I told them to take me to a general hospital. When I got there, I realized they didn't have the means to take care of me. Fortunately, my friend found me at this hospital and paid them under the table so that I could be brought to a private hospital, where upon arrival, they did scans and had a doctor come up to me and he looked me in the eyes and he said, "Danielle, you are internally bleeding to death and you have 15 minutes left to live." 15 minutes. Fear enveloped my whole body. Fear of death was definitely there. But something else was there. This calm, and peace came over me. I could not predict or control that next 15 minutes. I had to have faith that if I was meant to be here, that I would survive this. And if it was my time to go, then it was my time to go. Well, I woke to the Mexican doctor who saved my life. I broke my pelvis in half, I broke my right hip, and I cracked my tailbone. I had an external fixator on, which is poles drilled through my hips and across my pelvis. I was told I may never walk properly again, let alone do any other form of exercise. So when I came back to Canada, shame enveloped my whole being. I wanted to hide. I was so ashamed. I didn't want to be seen by anyone. I could not stop thinking how bad a person I am, how I'm so stupid. How dare I put my friends and family through this? And I wished that maybe I shouldn't have survived. I realized that I needed to get help. So I went to a therapist. Whereupon talking about my experience, I also shared that I was having reoccurring nightmares of my accident and flashbacks, and I'd even wake up and sweat. So I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. So how would I be able to go from surviving to thriving? Because that's not linear. There are moments in my life where I feel like I am barely surviving. And there are moments in my life where I feel like I'm absolutely thriving. And our stories are constantly shifting and constantly evolving. This glimmer of hope that came into my story was in a January day. I saw an article in the local newspaper on learn to run 10 kilometers. It's from the Vancouver Sun. And I thought to myself, I've never ran 10 kilometers before. I've never even done a race. This sounds like a challenge. People who cared about me told me not to do it. They said, Danielle, you could break your bones again. Don't do this run. But that pain inside and that desire to connect back to my body was so much stronger. So fast forward to April 17th, 2005. I'm at the start of the Vancouver Sun Run. I can hear the band playing. I see signs. I believe in you. You can do this. And I look over and I see my dad and my sister who've trained with me. I start crying and I can't stop crying. I'm crying so much that this man comes up to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, "It's okay, sweetie. It is not that hard of a race. You are gonna be okay." Well, little did that man know that an exact year ago to date, I was told I had 15 minutes left to live. Each and every one of us has a story. We just might not know them. In this moment, when I was at that start line, my story started to unfold where I was feeling so empowered, not only to myself and connected, but to others. I was feeling so connected that I started hiking up summits in my hot dog costume to training for a full marathon. Little did I know that this clock on fear was going to start again. Less than a year later, I was told, "You have cervical cancer." And I thought, why me? Why is this happening to me? And when you hear cancer, what really went on for me is I couldn't hear anything afterwards. So what I had to do, I stepped back, took in some deep breaths for sure. And I looked around and I saw that I had my phenomenal friends and family for support. I had medical doctors right there in front of me. And I was able to realize that I'm here for a reason, because early detection saves lives. And now part of my growth and healing journey is going and giving talks with the BC Cancer Foundation and the Canadian Cancer Society in hopes that by sharing that one female will go and get her physical. So this clock on life keeps running. And the fear hit me the hardest when my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. I was in complete denial. I thought, there is no way my dad is going to die. You see, my dad, my sister, and I, we called ourselves the Three Musketeers. There was nothing we didn't do together. We lived together, we worked together, we even traveled together. So when it came time to go into the hospital, we would go to every single hospital visit together and every single chemotherapy session. My relationship with what I thought was meant to be strong started to shift. I thought strong meant internalizing everything. But then I came to realize that strong meant being open and sharing what was really going on for me. I used humor a lot to deflect how I was really feeling on the inside. Because on the inside, I was feeling lost and empty. So how was I able to go from surviving to seeing love through the eyes of grief? Because if it wasn't for that unconditional love that my dad shared with us, I wouldn't know what that deep grief means. Grief never goes away. It just changes and shifts. And my relationship with my dad never died. It's just shifted and evolved. Movement has played a huge role in my life. So much so that my sister and I decided to join the Ride to Conquer Cancer. We did it the year my dad was alive. And it's a bike ride from Vancouver, Canada to Seattle, Washington. It's 250 kilometers. My dad was so proud of us that he even had shirts and a hat made saying Three Musketeers. And I remember doing this ride and thinking to myself, working through this grief that I'm feeling and connecting with all these other riders. Because each and every rider on this ride has their own story, has their own experience with grief and loss. And together, we're connected, and this sense of community was so rewarding for me. I'm choosing not to push parts of me in the shadow anymore, in fear of what other people might think. I'm choosing to share all of me in hopes that all of me will be seen and heard. I'm now 36 years old and choosing to stop the clock on fear and not be defined by it. When I was 19, fearless meant something completely different. Fearless meant being invincible. And now I've come to realize the importance of not taking a day for granted and appreciating the smaller things in life. And the second time the clock on fear came, I realized the importance of going to the doctor versus not knowing. And the third time the clock hit me the hardest was when I realized that to be fearless meant going through your grief and feeling what you need to feel when it comes to grief. My story has evolved, and now I'm a registered clinical counselor. I feel absolutely privileged to be working with others who may be experiencing grief and loss, trauma. They may be feeling shame or anxiety, or maybe other experiences. I feel that the work that I have done can only help me, lead me to where I am helping others on a much deeper level. One of the approaches I use is called narrative therapy. And why I'm so passionate about narrative therapy is because we believe that we have multiple stories, that there is not one single story, not one single problem that defines who we are. It's stepping back and seeing that you are so much more than whatever's visiting you. So the clock on life, it's running. It's there. Each and every one of us has a clock. It's whether or not we let fear define us. And I'll leave you with this. Do you want to let fear define you or be a part of your story?
In her line of work, our next speaker has helped countless people pursue their dreams. Now, in her talk, she reveals how she was once in their shoes and shares a step-by-step approach of making the most of every new beginning. Let's give a warm welcome to Gabriela Medar with her talk, Book Your One-Way Ticket to Success.
Have you ever bought a one-way ticket? When Ahmad got his one-way ticket to Canada, the only English word he knew was hello. He was lucky to be alive as he escaped prison and torture in Kurdistan, and now he was reunited with his family. From being a politician and university professor, the only job he could get here was in a pizza shop, as it didn't require much English. But he had 2 children to feed and support, and nothing else mattered. He also discovered, to his surprise, that he actually liked working with his hands and making the pizza dough. At night, he would attend English classes to try to assimilate into the community. He became the hardest worker in the kitchen and soon was promoted as a manager. When the opportunity came to buy a pizza shop, with not too much fuss, he grabbed it. And after, he opened another one and another one. It looked as he made it. He had the money, he bought a house, and his family was taken care of. But Ahmad wasn't going to stop here. He never forgot his community and the people who were left behind. He had a dream to find his voice again and speak up for the people who couldn't. He sold the shops and embarked on a new journey to become a career coach and support other immigrants and refugees in their journey to integrate in Canada. That's how we met, and we became friends for life. I was truly inspired by his determination to succeed against adversity and make the most of every beginning. Today, he's a successful program manager, entrepreneur, and community pillar and advocate for the vulnerable people. Some beginnings are more challenging than others, and we all wish that the journey we take to be smooth and easy. Like Ahmad, I was also once standing at the airport, terrified of the unknown. My one-way ticket was on the 12th of the 12th, 2012. Such a peculiar day to have held my one-way ticket in my hand, won't you say? On this date, my plane landed at Vancouver Airport. Here I was, with my whole life fitting in one suitcase. We had no job opportunity waiting for us, no friends, and most probably not enough money to survive. In a nutshell, no security. Just a world of uncertainties and probably the American dream. But something that seemed so terrifying became the refreshing drive of starting all over. Despite the fear of ending up homeless, lonely, or worse, falling sick without having the proper attention needed for recovery. With nothing to lose, I could gain anything. You see, when I was growing up, we were really poor. And I thought that my one-way ticket to a better life was to become an engineer. So I did. While I could say it was a rewarding and stable career, that wasn't my dream job. But hey, it paid the bills and helped got rid of the anxiety of being poor. My dream, however, was to work in a profession where I help others grow in their purpose and also start my own business. It proved really hard for me to justify that to achieve this, I was going to give it all up. The financial security and recognition that came with my job as an engineer. Most believed I was making a great mistake and would live to regret it. So there I was now, in a new city, in a new country, after I purchased my one-way ticket and left it all behind. Finally, I had taken a leap of faith and created room for new adventures, the opportunity to chase my wildest dreams. I also had nothing to lose and no return ticket to my all-comfortable life. With no holds barred, I began experiencing a sense of freedom, courage and confidence like never before. But make no mistake, there was the fear of uncertainty that crept in sometimes. I just made it certain to shove it aside and hold on to the possibilities that, what could I do with this new phase of my life? It was a feeling of being drunk of energy and hope. Soon enough, through persistence, the planets aligned. I landed my dream job as a career coach. I went on publishing my first book and opened my first e-commerce business. Things that, most probably, I would have not achieved or experienced if I didn't take that risk of purchasing that one-way ticket. Mark Zuckerberg once said, "The biggest risk is not taking any risk." In a world that is changing really quickly, the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail is not taking risks. When you look forward, the path tends to seem uncertain and the future impossible to predict. When you look back, however, all the dots seem to connect somehow. Well, except of course, the dots that mark the action you could have taken. The greatest life lesson I learned from that one-way ticket is that in life, the more things you accumulate, the more solid you become in your career, the more financial stability you have, the harder it becomes to make changes, take risks, follow your dreams, and speak your truth. You become bound by your past, by the things you have, and fear consumes you that you might lose everything. The consequence of this, you begin to play safe. You think you are rich, but you are actually poor. Poor in living to the fullest. You are robbed of the energy and beauty of a new beginning. The number one thing I've noticed people struggle with when it comes to unemployment or lack of job satisfaction is the fear of a new beginning. As a career coach, I had the privilege of assisting hundreds of people transition from unemployment to employment, from one career to another, from a job to a dream job. Transitioning into a new chapter or starting over, it's an incredible opportunity to reclaim your life and redesign your future. Everyone can get the fresh start, but there is no easy way to start over. Most of us, we are afraid of failure. Some of us cannot let go of what we have. When I realized that most people are fearful of taking that chance and making a change in their life choices, I took it on myself to start sharing my secret of making the most of every new beginning. These 3 steps will help you know more about yourself and your aspirations. It will define what is important and set you off on the path to a fresh start with confidence and enthusiasm. Number 1, make a what-if list of everything you will lose if you fail to achieve your goal. What if I will never get a job? What if I cannot support myself if I end the relationship? What if I won't be able to finish the course? Whatever it is, please write it down. And keep in mind that challenges are only as big as we make them. Number 2, admit that defeat is temporary and not permanent. People feel stuck in there forever. They imagine their worst fear will never end, thinking like, I will be forever homeless. I will never find someone else. The situation will never change in my favor. They make all sorts of excuses in their head. And you know something beautiful about the mind? When you make excuses, you get to keep them. Number 3, eventually, you would get there, to the place you want to be. Just have a success mindset and the belief of certainty that everything will work out for you. Harness the energy of the new beginning. The more excited and enthusiastic you are, the more people will gravitate around you and more opportunities will come. And even if your dream is not going to happen immediately or within the goal time frame you set for yourself, know that in the process, you will become transformed. You become more confident, skilled, and other doors will open for you. Opportunities not seen from a distance are oftentimes seen when you get closer to your target. When you understand and accept that your past does not determine your future, and you get the one-way ticket to the life you want, coupled with a strong commitment to making it work, you become unstoppable. And in the process, you transform and become much more than expected. I guarantee you, your life will never be the same. Today, there is more fear in the world than ever before. People are afraid of getting sick. We are scared and hoping that those we love don't get sick either. We don't want to lose our jobs, businesses, end up poor with no security plan. We may shy away from failure, but we crave stories of overcoming and persevering. This is the perfect opportunity to get your one-way ticket to your dream life. Starting a new career, ending the toxic relationship, opening your business, taking care of your well-being. You just have to take a leap of faith. Book your one-way ticket to success today.
And with this important information and insight, we close the first session. Indeed, the only way to forge forward is to bring it on, no matter what life throws at you. Before we move on to our second session, we have a bit of entertainment by some very talented artists. We'll have Angel Huang and Isaac Feng to perform a cover of Coldplay's Yellow. Enjoy the show.
Look at the stars, look how they shine for you, and everything you do. Yeah, they were all yellow. I came along, I wrote a song for you, and all the things you do, and it was called Yellow. So then I took my turn. Oh, what a thing to have done. And it was all yellow. And your skin, oh yeah, your skin and bones turn into something beautiful. You know I love you so. You know I love you so. I swam across, I jumped across for you. Oh, what a thing to do. And they were all yellow. I drew a line, I drew a line for you. Oh, what a thing to do. And it was all yellow. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Your skin, oh yeah, your skin and bones turn into something beautiful. You know, for you I bleed myself dry. For you I bleed myself dry. It's true. Look how they shine for you. Look how they shine for you. Look how they shine for. Look how they shine for you. Look how they shine for you. Look how they shine for. Look at the stars. Look how they shine for you. And everything you do.
We can no longer afford to be on the sidelines. Now is the time to act. This is session 2, Raise Your Voice. In these times, diversity of ideas is more important than ever. This session features a dynamic range of talks and performances from extraordinary risk takers and innovators. This is a content advisory. The next talk is specifically designed to be viewed by adults and therefore may be unsuitable for children. Viewer discretion is advised. As the stigma around cannabis subsides, we are exploring the connection between women, weed, and sex. Our next speaker has been experimenting with cannabis and chocolates as an aphrodisiac and has crafted her own line of infused truffles, which help women to reignite that feeling of intensity and intimacy. Please welcome Lisa Chan.
I bet you that I have something that you want. And here's my desire for you. I want you to have it too. Let's turn back the clock a little bit. I had just turned 40, and by all outside measures, I had it all. A great husband that I've been with for 24 years, 2 awesome kids, a beautiful home, and a successful business. But here's my dirty little secret. I was bored, frustrated, and I just wanted something new. As I thought about the next 30 years with the same man, having the same sex, I just wanted to cry. So I made a decision that was to not alter only my life, but my husband's life and my friends' lives. And now I hope your lives too. I decided to take responsibility and own my sexual pleasure. That sounds great, but what does that actually mean? To own my sexual pleasure? Groucho Marx says, marriage is a wonderful institution. That's if you want to live in an institution. Well, I say, instead of viewing my marriage as a prison house, I looked at it as a safe house. A safe house to discover what I wanted. A safe house to ask for what I wanted. And a safe place to get what I wanted. A place to surrender and enroll my husband in the adventure of a lifetime that would last a lifetime. And this is what I'm sharing with you today, the path to a blissful relationship. And it starts with these 3 steps. Discovering what you want, asking for what you want, and then getting what you want. First, let's start with discovering what you want. If your high school education was anything like mine, you probably would have ended up with the same amount of sexual shame that I felt in my early life. And that was, no sex is safe sex. Ultimately, we were taught that sex is bad and it wasn't about pleasure. In my experience, women are taught to be sexy, but not sexual. Sexually available, but not demanding. To bring our partners to pleasure, but only fake our own orgasms for the protection of their ego. Through religious and cultural programming, women were taught to repress our sexual desires and focus on pleasing men. Well, I have needs too, and I decided to do something about it. So at 40 years old, I began experimenting with cannabis as an aphrodisiac. Now, a lot of research has been done with cannabis, both in and out of the bedroom. In 2019, a study done by the International Society for Sexual Medicine said that 69% of people reported that sex while using cannabis was more pleasurable. The women reported an increase in sex drive and improved satisfaction with orgasm. And after 4 years of experimentation, this is definitely something I can vouch for. Before, in the bedroom, my mind was so busy thinking about all the to-dos. I'm sure you can relate. The kids, the chores, my work, when I really should be present with my husband. Cannabis took me out of my head and into my body. Like in the scene when Harry met Sally, earth-shattering orgasms pushed me to seek more pleasure. Most people are motivated to change because of pain, but I was motivated by pleasure. If you were getting the kind of orgasms I was getting, trust me, you're gonna wanna change too. Along the way, I concocted my own pleasure-inducing aphrodisiac chocolates I call Truffaut. After many trials and lots of guinea pigs, including my husband, I arrived at the perfect dose of THC and aphrodisiac herbs. These delicious truffles took me from boring maintenance sex into cosmic vacation sex. We all have our own unique wants and desires. There's no reason to be embarrassed or ashamed. Yet, in order to get what we want, we have to ask for it. To remove my sexual shame, I needed to normalize the conversations around sex. And wow, I found out that I'm not that special. Everyone I talked to wanted what I wanted, and it's to have passionate, intimate sexual relationships with their partners. Which takes us to step 2, asking for what you want. And for this, I'm going to get naked with you all today. Emotionally naked, that is. And what that means is surrendering to vulnerability and allowing myself to be seen at my core. Being vulnerable is the ultimate form of intimacy. After being with my husband for more than 26 years, I was finally able to say what I mean and mean what I say. This brought me to a deeper level of intimacy and gave me the newfound courage to ask for what I want. It may be scary at first to have those courageous conversations, but just know there is so much joy on the other side of fear. Ask yourself, have you ever fantasized about a passionate kiss? More foreplay? Or even receiving oral sex from your partner? But have you actually ever asked for it? I was 42 the first time I asked my husband for what I wanted. For years, I built up so much anxiety because of all the sexual shame I was programmed to believe about my body. When I finally had the courage to ask him how to pleasure me, it was like this huge relief to find out that he really wanted to know. Ladies, your men want nothing more than to give you pleasure, but the poor guy just needs to know how and he needs to hear it from you. Prior to my sexual awakening, I expected my husband to be a mind reader. You know what I'm talking about. There were nights that I would lay in bed, fantasizing about him caressing me, knowing exactly all the perfect places, kissing me from my neck all the way down to my toes, of course. I just expected him to know how I wanted to be touched or kissed. And when he didn't have a single clue, I would get so resentful inside. How can we expect our partners to be mind readers if we don't tell them what we want? As frightening as it is to ask for what you want, the rewards are always better than the risks. Believe me, I've been there. Many of us have at least 3 to 4 significant relationships in our lifetime. Some of us, including myself, recreated those relationships with the same person. I am now on my 3rd marriage to the same man. So yes, it is possible to reignite that desire. Now that we have discovered and asked for what will lead to sexual satisfaction, it's time to get what we want. To truly get what you want, you have to understand the more committed you are in your relationship, the safer you'll feel and the more you will experiment, which will increase the chance of you actually getting what you want. According to the Canadian Justice Department, about 40% of couples end up in divorce. Many of my friends are already divorced or waiting to be divorced. They're looking externally for the right person, when in fact, the right person could be with them all along, if he's willing to come and play. What is missing is in the awareness of what truly passionate sex could be. Many of my friends go as far as using the F word to describe their sex life. They tell me it's just fine. Well, there are 2 types of fine. One that I call maintenance sex, you know, the boring status quo kind of sex. And then there's the extreme kind, where many of my friends don't even remember the last time they had sex. The reality is, they're not fine, but they're too complacent to do anything about it. My friends have settled to be in relationships where sex is just not important. They say they're fine, but can't it be better? My very first guinea pig is my personal assistant, Kelly. She came to me at 40, freshly divorced from an abusive, sexless marriage. After years of misery, she thought she'll never have sex again. Initially reluctant, she became an important force in me developing and passing on the sexual liberation experience. It opened up an entire world for her. So, what did Kelly get? She went from the verge of suicide to having the best sex ever. This walking, talking sex goddess attracted into her life Mr. Six-Pack, who continues to give her what she wants even after 3 years later. Through this journey, I realized to get what I wanted in my marriage, I had to let go of my ego. Cannabis helped me find my husband's jokes funny again because I'm able to listen with fresh ears. He's more attractive to me because now I see him with fresh eyes. I'm so grateful for the man that he is, free from the tainting caused by time that is so common in long-term relationships. The most important part about my transformation was adopting a growth mindset around my sexuality. It's so easy to get stuck and complacent, especially when you've been together for a long time. So, whether you've fallen out of love or just happily coexisting, or whether you have love but not passion, this message is for you. Owning your sexual pleasure is an ongoing responsibility, a journey that requires a growth mindset, a mindset that never settles for mediocre sex and intimacy. It's true that the work is not easy, but it's so worth it. In this talk, I've shown you by discovering what you want, asking for what you want, and then getting what you want, you can own your sexual pleasure. With the help of Trafel, it does become exponentially easier. So, come on, it's your turn to ignite your sexuality. This is my desire for you. It's time to take your mediocre maintenance sex to mind-blowing vacation sex at home.
An artist's style is learned, developed, adopted, and is evolving. It is a combination of their voice, their story, and their journey. Our next speaker has a unique style, gleaned over decades of history, travel, and reconciliation. In her talk, she reveals the elements that define her artistic style. With her talk, Becoming Who I Am, please welcome Xiang.
I'm a multimedia artist. I do photography, painting, video, and installation. This is my recent installation work called interweaving. In this work, I use pins and thread as my main media. Pins might create pain, but they hold the thread from the deep root, my Chinese culture, and go through the canvas and transform into Western culture. The thread cross each other, create special pattern and space, and continue to reach out to the future. It forms who I am. The original idea comes from my childhood memory. This is an old loom in the picture which I took in the museum in my hometown. When I was a little child, I often saw my grandma and my mom sitting on a wood loom, weaving and spinning daily, a wood shuttle flying back and forth between two layers of cotton thread. Pleated patterns slowly appeared. Big ones, small ones, square ones, rectangular ones, red ones, blue ones. Every beautiful piece was woven with a chirping sound. Later, my mom left home to look for a new opportunity. She finally worked in a new textile factory, and it was a very good job for a female at that time. My mom was very excited, and she told me that the new job opened her eyes to see the world differently. The traditional wood loom disappeared, and the old weaving chirping sound is left in my memory. Along with the globalization, a big migration is brewing in China. People leaving home to big cities or to foreign countries in order to look for more opportunities. My family was part of the Great Migration. I decided to leave China to be educated in Canada because I was so eager to see and understand the world more. My father had own business in China, and I once worked there as an accountant. I came to Vancouver to learn commerce, and later I would return to China and continue his business. My life in the new country changed me dramatically. I worked very hard to learn English in order to fit into the society. I was so happy to know I got into UBC. I was planning to apply for commerce as my major. In the second year, when I had to choose an elective course, I enrolled in an art drawing class. I always liked art, but I had never tried it because my father told me that art could not provide a good job. The drawing class was very challenging. I could not understand what contemporary art was. I even had a tutor help me because I desperately did not want to fail the class. At the same time, I was struggling to understand the art projects we were doing in the class because of the cultural differences. This was when I started to re-identify myself as a Chinese Canadian. By the end of the term, I loved it, and I became more curious about art. I decided to pursue my study in the art, so I shifted my major from commerce to visual art. But it was only in the second and third year of visual art class that I started to think like an artist. As a new immigrant in Canada, I was still confused about my identity. I experienced both peace and conflict. On one hand, I needed to learn and understand the newness in order to fit into the host country. On the other hand, I always feel the primordial pull of my origin. It is for this reason that my art expressions focus on cultures and identities. As depicted in this work, where there are two of me, a Chinese version and a Western version, we were sitting and communicating. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue. After graduated from UBC, I went back to my hometown in China. But instead of going to my father's factory, as he expected me to, I opened my own art studio. I was teaching and creating artworks there. I had my solo show called The Wind. I used 2,000 pinwheels to create the wind and travel between Chinese culture and Western culture from the past to the present time. My hometown had changed a lot since I left. Lots of new high-rises were built and old houses were destroyed. I started taking the pictures to record the change. As I took more pictures, I realized the new buildings in my hometown were very similar to Canada's, and the square windows on the buildings also reminded me of my mom's cloth pattern, the one she used to weave. This weaving skill was lost for years. I started to look back to my family weaving history. It is very interesting to see how the loom machines and my family were changed along with the time. After staying in China for 5 years, I moved back to Canada with my son. I created artwork at home in order to take care of my son at the same time. Drawing the inspiration from my family weaving history, I painted a series of work. Throughout of the history, different loom machines were invented in order to increase efficiency. From fabrics, clothing also went through different processes and finally exported abroad. Continuing my family weaving journey, my shuttle is my artist brush, moving across the canvas of my life. It carries my memories, records my current life, and searches for my future, weaving my Chinese and Western experience together. In this installation, you can see the map of Suzhou on top and the map of the Great Vancouver on the bottom. I use thread to connect them together and form a unique space and shape. In my recent work, I applied more weaving ideas. I use pins and threads as my main media on my canvas. I apply traditional patterns and colors into my artworks. And as I process the work, I found it is very interesting that I'm able to build up many layers on the canvas. And because of the distance between the thread and the canvas, my work looks like 3D artwork. From different angles, they look very different, depending on where the light shines. It creates a shade on another part of the canvas, which creates additional layer. As the light changes, the artwork looks different. I keep moving forward and experimenting to see what I can accomplish. I use more pins and let myself wander more freely on the canvas. I have brought some of my very recent works here. I try to create different shapes on the canvas and build up different depths and layers on my canvas. They are not regular 2D canvas work. They are more like 3D sculpture works. The thread takes me into a unique space to understand how many possibilities there are. Weaving becomes a very powerful way for me to reconnect my family, my past, my Chinese culture. However, through the canvas, it transfers into my present and connect with Western culture, even reach out to the future. Today, as a female artist, I create artworks guided by my female sensitivity and global vision. I took the wooden shuttle from my mom and started my new adventure in Canada. I applied my old experience and new possibilities into my art practice. Through creating my works, I have connected my past to present life, overcome my fear and struggle, build up my strength and courage to create a new vision in my life. Through art, I re-identified who I am. I'm not just a Chinese or just a Canadian. I carry both Chinese and Western cultures, which provide me with a global vision to see the world as a multicultural artist. The chirping song continues. It crosses the oceans from my birthplace of Suzhou to my new home in Vancouver. It transferred from my mom's traditional looms to my canvas filled with pins and thread. It continues to inspire me, transforming from the past to present, interweaving a new vision of life and world.
And now it's time for a refresher before moving on to the next part of the session. Originally from Tokyo, our next performer is now a proud Vancouverite. While on a date at a local comedy club, she was convinced that she might have something to say on stage. She made her debut in 2016 and has had us rolling on the floor ever since. Please welcome Yumi Nagashima.
Hey. Hi, lovely people in Vancouver. How's it going tonight? Good. A little bit introduction about myself. My name is Yumi, like you and me. And my soul food is rice, miso soup, and sweet marijuana. Oh, I love my marijuana. And my spirit animal is Cardi B. Nice to meet you. Guys, I love my grandparents in Japan. Oh, they're like the cutest people ever. Especially my grandpa. He just turned 95 years old. Yeah, so I asked him, hey, Grandpa, you're 95 years old. Can you give me one most important advice about life? And he gave me this beautiful song. Do you guys want to hear it? Okay. It goes like this. 人生なんてもうどうでもいい死にたいやああ死にたいや Well, it means my elbow joints super fucked up I just wanna die Oh, kill me now. Thank you. So inspiring. Guys, I finally saw Moana, the Disney movie with my niece. I think it's great. Disney princesses are getting stronger. I think it's good influence for younger girls. When I was a child, I used to think Snow White was a Japanese lady. She has geisha-like pale skin, black hair, and tends to 7 ugly white men. Does it sound like your favorite video? Have you seen Tidying Up with Marie Kondo? Yeah? Well, if you haven't, it's basically a Japanese lady teaches white people how to clean up their shit. But her method is very interesting, though. You have to touch every single item to see if it sparks joy to you. But it's easier said than done, because I found lots of things, they don't really spark joy to me when I touch them, but I know I would regret it if I throw them away. Like toaster. Umbrella. Or my boyfriend of 3 years. Guys, I'm just joking. I love my toaster. But I love my boyfriend, and we have sex a lot. And let's thank you. Thank you for the excitement. Let's admit sex is very important for a romantic relationship. And as for me, I found going shopping with my boyfriend increases our sexual activities. Because what turns me on the most is not when he wears tailored suits, not when he brings breakfast in bed, but when he charges through the people in front of him to get the final 60-inch plasma TV for me in Chinese New Year sale in Richmond. I'm like, go get him, my white samurai! Bring that hot sizzling deal to mommy. Spark joy. Japanese people love Hollywood movies and we watch it all the time, but we watch it with Japanese dub. And today I want to show you how celebrities sound like on Japanese TV in Japan. Can you name some name of celebrities? Steven Seagal. Okay. Steven Seagal in Japanese dub. 僕はスティーブン・シガールだよ。Next. You guys, do you guys want one more? Okay. Ellen DeGeneres in Japanese dub. Hi! 私はエレン・デネジェラスだよ。みんな元気？ Thank you. You guys been so much fun, but I'm gonna leave you on this. Do you guys like Lady Gaga? I love Lady Gaga because once she said, "Don't you ever let a soul in the world tell you that you can't be exactly who you are." Her non-apologetic style really inspires me because in Japan, people have the mentality of, if you stand out, you will be subject to criticism. I want to be like Lady Gaga to Japanese people, a mysterious, empowering alien with Kobe beef dress. Would you like to hear my favorite Lady Gaga song in Japanese? Oh, 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 oh. 捕まっちゃったよ、バッドロマンス。Oh, oh, 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 oh. 捕まっちゃったよ、バッドロマンス。ガーガーガーガーガーダラダラダラララララララちょうだいあなたのバッドロマンスだよ。Thank you very much.
Our first speaker is a true catalyst for change. She arrived in Vancouver 10 years ago and has since founded a community club, an academy for after-school activities, and more recently, a K-12 school. She is a mother to not only her 3 children, but to the hundreds of students in her tutelage. In her talk, she encourages us to dream big, because we only achieve whatever is in our heart. Please join me in welcoming Ying Liu.
每个人小时候都有很多的梦想。我小时候的梦想就是离家远一点。我出生在中国北方的边境小城，家乡虽美，但也抵御不住远方的诱惑。小时候，妈妈经常给我讲一些大山以外北京的故事，那些故事就这样一点点在我心中生根发芽。我盼望着自己快一点长大，一定有机会到大山以外去看一看。终于在19岁那一年，我成功的离开了我的家乡，到那我梦中的最遥远的北京城，并在那里生活了20年。期间，我在北京成家立业、结婚生子，也影响着父母兄弟搬迁至北京，同时也影响身边的亲戚朋友也搬迁至这个可以实现人生更多梦想的地方。在北京生活的这20年里，是中国迅速发展的20年，同时也是我个人快速成长的20年。这期间，我逐步的发现，在北京以外有更广阔的世界，这再次激起我去远方看一看的期待。这个想法又一次在我心中滋长，并付诸行动。2010年，我们全家登陆温哥华，一住又是一个10年。这10年里，我们全家人一起横穿加拿大，环绕美国，自驾北极。我们用脚学习了加拿大的10个省和美国的38个州。我的语言能力也逐步的脱离了聋哑状态。这期间，我和我新结识的小伙伴一起创立了华人俱乐部、CCS 全科教育公司、新桥私立小学、鼎石教育学院，学员也增至1000人，教职员工近100人。刚登陆那一年，女儿6岁，她用半年的时间适应了校园生活。9岁的某一天，她问我，她说：“妈妈，人为什么长大了要读大学呢？什么是大学？大学里又能学到什么呢？” 我很开心他这样问我，我说是个好问题，我也想知道大学里什么样，为什么要读大学，我们又从那里能学到什么呢？从那一年开始，我们每年都把大学旅行计入到年旅行计划中。百年校园不仅仅是美丽，而更有魔力，它可以让每一个去探访它的人深深地爱上它。当然女儿也不例外，初生牛犊不怕虎。女儿在爱上的若干大学中仔细甄选，做出她自己的选择。她说，将来我要去读耶鲁大学，因为那里有可爱的耶鲁狗，最漂亮的校园，还有她最爱的披萨饼。这些理由太充足了。我告诉她，好，咱就读耶鲁大学了。从那以后，他常跟同学们吹牛，他长大了要去读耶鲁大学。我也帮他吹牛，我说我女儿将来要读耶鲁大学。随着女儿的慢慢长大，某天她回来说，妈妈，将来我要去三米中学读书，我查了三米中学那些学生，没有几个去读了耶鲁。如果那一年只有一个人去了，怎么会是我呢？是啊，我反问他，怎么会是你呢？有一段时间他非常懊恼，他回来说，我同学的姐姐去了耶鲁大学，真的特别辛苦，每天晚上睡得很晚，他吃饭的时候都会睡着了。是啊，太辛苦了，你怎么能做得到呢？小学毕业那一年，他得到了那一届毕业生4块奖牌之一，他看着那个奖牌，又在问我，他说，妈妈，如果有一个人去了耶鲁，那为什么不是我呢？是啊，为什么不是你呢？很有可能就是你啊。8年级的那一年，他格外的努力，每一项作业都精益求精，晚上会睡得很晚，老师会收藏他的作业，把它作为样板工程展示在教室里。我知道有一颗种子已经在他的心中生根发芽，他也在盼望着自己快点长大，到他所期待的那更精彩的地方去。如今她16岁，1.78米，是一个地道的北美女孩，高大健壮。她学习了滑雪、帆船、游泳、滑冰，挚爱绘画和马术，并在这2方面呢取得了优秀的成绩。她掌握了中英法西4门语言。她是校爵士队成员、校橄榄球队队员、市青年大使、少年联合国成员。如今她11年级，每日里忙碌着行走在她自己追梦的路上。成功与否并不那么重要，心中有远方，没有谁能够阻挡。在从事教育这个行业以来呢，我还接触到非常多优秀的学员。当真是应了那句话，你不到法院不知道打官司的人多，不到医院你不知道病人多，从事了教育行业你才知道学霸太多。很多学员就是大家眼里那些别人家的孩子，真的没有最强，只有更强。我的强者认知被这些学员一次一次打破。今天我想分享的呢，不是学霸，因为学霸太多了。我认识他的时候，他刚刚来温哥华不久，是个新留学生，就读10年级。他的妈妈带他到我这里来做义工，他被安排在前台工作，工作很简单，接听电话并记录下来。他高高的个子，长长的头发遮住眼睛，不爱讲话，能看得出来他属于重度青春期综合症。他在这里工作的一段时间，我们也稍稍熟悉了一点，偶尔聊些工作以外的话题。那天天气很热，他低着头，头发遮住半张脸，我看着都热。我说，帅哥，换个头型吧。我把我姑爷的发型给他看，希望他能换这个发型。他瞥了一眼我的手机，笑了一下，没说话。周末他又来值班，我惊喜地发现他居然换了我建议他的发型。我立刻说，哇哦，太帅了，你看发型清爽了，你也不会那么热了。出门小心被女生追哦。他又笑了，笑得很灿烂。那一天我发现他有一双明亮的眼睛。 从那以后，我们逐步成了朋友。我常叮嘱他，这里工作不忙，你需要把你的作业利用空闲时间写了。他真的就这样做了。我问他，你的成绩如何？他说，不太好。那我又问他，那你为什么不补一补呢？他说，没用的，老师都是骗人的。我瞪着眼睛看着他，这么多人在上课的进进出出，难道他们都傻吗？你哪一科不好呢？他说都不好。哪一科要考试了？他说数学。那现在多少分啊？70分左右。那我问他，你想不想得 A？86分。他抬起头来看着我，眼里满是期待又是疑惑。我说，我给你安排个老师试试，如果成绩上去了，说明老师不骗人；如果是成绩上不去，说明你说的是对的。他点了点头，好。毫无疑问，就这样，他的成绩一门一门提高上去，最终12年级，他以优异的成绩横扫加拿大1类他所申请的全部大学录取通知书。他说，还有的学校跟他谈，是不是奖学金给少了，直接让他开个价，到底给多少奖学金他会去。说起这个的时候，满脸的阳光、帅气、自信，与他刚来的时候简直判若两人。他准备去上大学之前呢，依然在这里做义工。那一年暑假，我们经常在一起聊天，我们会聊起他未来选女朋友的标准啊，家族的担当与责任啊，未来的学习和工作的生活。我告诉他，如果你8年级那一年我遇到你，你会考上美国全10的大学。因为你真的很聪明。他看着我认真的说，村长，你说的是真的吗？当然是真的，不过现在也不晚啊，你要在大学期间保证学习优秀，大学毕业后再去藤校读个研，也是一个非常好的选择。他笑着说，好，就这么定了。3年时间，他长大了，从一个有一点婴儿肥的内敛小男生，成长为心中有梦、自信健壮的小伙子。我知道他准备好了，有了男人的担当、梦和远方，心已飞翔，没有什么可以阻挡。我是个幸运的人，我喜欢孩子，工作的便利条件让我拥有更多的机会去见证孩子们长大的过程。无论课后机构还是新桥小学，我都当作亲生的私立学校一样去经营和培养。当然，如果你在新桥读书，可以有更多的时间全科全方位的接触我的教育理念。新桥学校的校长与我的教育理念无缝隙衔接，原来中西教育竟然可以如此契合。培养孩子的过程就像解锁一个一个谜题，每一个妈妈和老师一起见证成长的奇迹，让孩子们学会奋进，拥有梦想。每一个孩子都不一样，不能用统一的方式去培养，寻找最合适的适合孩子的那把钥匙，是家庭与教育者的责任。孩子真的不是3岁看到老，每一个人的一生都会千变万化，哪里都可以滋生新的希望。教育是一个令人幸福的职业，再过10年，又会有多少学生在身边长大？眼前这8岁的这一批小糖豆，一定已经入读了大学。如今已经就读大学的这一批，10年后也一定会成为社会中最具担当的脊梁。作为一个热爱教育的人，我想对你说，你的成就就是我的成就，你的辉煌就是我的辉煌。我们谁也不看，只看你要去的远方。我们超前做好一切远行的计划，拥有强而有力的臂膀。你的远方就是我的远方，心有多远，就能走多远。
Our last speaker is a self-made woman in her own right. Through hard work, persistence, and resilience, she is now the top 1% realtor in Vancouver and now helps others achieve financial freedom. To talk about how resilience played a huge factor in overcoming her struggles, please welcome Denise Mai.
Imagine a 9-year-old little girl left home all alone. No cable, no cell phone, scared to death. Every time there's a noise outside, she's wondering if a stranger is looking to break into her home. With every walk past the window, her heart would stop. And she would be scared to go to sleep because she didn't know when her parents would return home. Well, this little girl was me. This was how I started building my resilience. I built it by facing my fears. Even though I was in a dark, scared place as a child, I built my confidence by not letting my circumstances keep me there. This became my superpower. Today, I want to share with you my story so I can help you discover how you can build resilience into your life. Building confidence and beliefs in you in order to build this superpower within you. But what does it mean to be truly resilient? I believe that resilience is the capacity to recover from adversity, to bounce back from challenging life situations, or when things don't go as planned. When things are stressful and challenging and overwhelming, it means being calm, clear, and stable. The question is, how do you choose to face these challenges? Let me tell you about how I started my journey on building my resilience. My mom is resilient. She was a refugee from Vietnam. She risked her life with her younger sister to escape her country on a boat. They were stranded for 4 days. They were raided by pirates, not once, but twice. Sadly, her sister died on the boat. But my mom, she survived. After 15 treacherous days, she arrived at an Indonesian refugee camp. She was one of the lucky ones sent to Canada. My mom had me at the age of 40. She was a single mom on welfare. I grew up in Chinatown. And as a child, I remember lining up at the food bank and having Christmas dinner at the Union Gospel Mission and getting clothes and toys donated from the Salvation Army. Looking back, I don't regret growing up the way I did. It taught me many valuable lessons in my life, like being grateful every single day for everything that I have. When you come from rock bottom, you truly appreciate everything life has to offer. You never, ever take anything for granted because you know the value of the simplest things in life. I've never met my biological father. My stepdad, my real dad, came into my life when I was 8. What I remember most was that he worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, to provide a better life for me and my mom. With his minimum wage job, he made sure there was food on the table, a roof over our heads, and provided the basics of life for us. His resilience created a deep-rooted resilience inside me. Thank you, Dad, for instilling a hard work ethic in me and for showing me unconditional love. I started working in grade 4 at the tender age of 10. Every Saturday, I would wake up at 5 a.m. when it was pitch dark outside with my mom, and we would take transit for 2 hours to make sandwiches on a conveyor belt. The first day I got paid, my boss handed me $50. It wasn't much money, but to me as a 10-year-old little girl, it was the most money I've ever seen my entire life. That day, something shifted for me. Seeing those dollar bills in the palms of my hand created a desire in me. And I made a promise to myself, and I vowed from that day forward, I was going to step into my independence. Some may say, why would my mom let me work at such a young age? To them, I say, thank you, Mom. Thank you for teaching me independence, the value of money, and responsibility. I put myself through university, working minimum wage jobs. I was an average student, but despite that, I worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies. One day, I had lunch with the CEO, and I shared with him that I didn't think the corporate world was for me. I knew I was an entrepreneur at heart. He suggested I get into real estate. My first thought that came into my head was, who's going to trust this 24-year-old with their property? I didn't have the confidence in me just yet. My confidence grew when I entered a contest selling ad space to a newsletter. The winning team would win a trip anywhere around the world. My friend and I entered, and we set up appointments to pitch to realtors. But the night before we began, my friend bailed on me. My heart dropped, and all these doubts and insecurities came rushing through my head. Long story short, I ended up winning the contest on my own. This gave me the confidence to know that I could sell. After proving to myself that I could do it, I am enough. Shortly after, I got my real estate license in 2010. By 2015, I'm proud to say I became a top 1% realtor. I placed 32nd out of 14,000 agents. My friend who bailed on me provided me with a great learning opportunity to face my fears and conquer my doubts and insecurities. I am thankful for her. Because of her, I created a strong and unbreakable belief within myself to know that anything and everything is possible. Resilience. What an amazing superpower. It can be taught and is a skill that can be learned and cultivated over time. It's like a muscle that can be strengthened through exercise. Resilience is a habit-forming skill. The more goals you accomplish, the more resilient you become. Resilience is also much more than a skill. It's an adaptation, a journey that begins early on in childhood and continues the rest of your life. So how do you build this magic superpower? Let me share with you 3 ways. First, change your perspective. Are you a victim of your circumstance? Or do you use your circumstance to fuel your motivation for success? When you adjust your perspective, you can see things from another angle. You can see opportunities when there were obstacles. This is a way to reframe the picture. Ask yourself, when faced with these issues, what are your options? What can you learn from this? And what may be your opportunities? These questions turn you away from the blame game and allow you to focus on the positive. The second way to build resilience is choose your response. In times of difficulties, we can panic and react negatively, or we can remain calm, logical to find a solution. How we react can change our outcome. When I was faced with a decision to move forward with those meetings or give up on the contests, this led me to a path of opportunity that I embraced and becoming the realtor I am today. Your reaction and action is always up to you. The third way to building resilience is finding a sense of purpose. Growing up poor and seeing my parents go through hardship gave me the strength of purpose to achieve success. It allowed me to give back to my parents, to whom I'm grateful for bringing me up in this world. We cannot protect ourselves from all the hardships of life. What we can do is protect our own self-protection, the capacity to endure hardships and bounce back more quickly. And most importantly, to know and to have confidence and belief that it is always possible to overcome adversity. No matter where you stand in society, adversity will come. I learned to be resilient by looking at how my parents fought through their challenges and came out stronger. I grew up not having the things I wanted. That motivated me to pursue my dreams. If you are resilient, and you be sure you're going to arrive at your destination. Don't give up now. One moment, one decision, one choice can change your life forever. It can bring you closer to your goals and your dreams. The distance where you are right now and where you want to be is action. Before taking action, you have to make a choice. So stop procrastinating on that dream. Just make the right decision today. This little girl from Chinatown built in herself the superpower of resilience. I challenge you to build this within yourself. Don't waste another second, because you can have everything that you've ever dreamed of now. Thank you.
Now that concludes our third session today. Before we introduce our final round of speakers in our fourth and last session, let's take some time to relax and enjoy what these fine artists have in store for us. Angel is back. She performs with Australian R&B artist Colin with a cover of a famous Chinese song called Black Sweater. This video is a beautiful result of a collaboration across continents. Her final song for us will be performed with Isaac, so befitting for today's theme of Fearless. It is a cover of Mariah Carey's When You Believe. Enjoy the performance.
不起，干净你让我拥有秋天的美丽。看着那白色的蜻蜓在空中忘了前进，还能不能重新编织脑海中起毛球的记忆？再说我爱你，可能雨也不会停。黑色毛衣藏在哪里？就像回忆永远停在那里。在空中忘了前进，还重新重新编织脑海中起毛球的记忆。再说我爱你，可能雨也不会停。黑色毛衣藏在哪里？就像回忆永远停在那里。Many nights we prayed with no proof anyone could hear. In our hearts a hope for a song we barely understood. Now we are not afraid, although we know there's much to fear. We were moving mountains long before we knew we could. No, yes, there can be miracles when you believe. Though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. Who knows what miracles you can achieve when you believe? Somehow you will. You will when you believe. In this time of fear, when prayer so often proves in vain, hope seems like the summer birds too swiftly flown away. Yet now I'm standing here, my heart's so full I can't explain, seeking faith and speaking words I never thought I'd say. There can be miracles when you believe. Though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. Who knows what miracles you can achieve when you believe? Somehow you will. Now you will. You will when you believe. You will when you believe.
For the culminating session of our women's event today, we explore beyond our limits. The final session of speakers will share wisdom on preparing for new challenges, turning fear into action, and forging a new path above and beyond. Our first speaker has been wearing not a physical mask, but an emotional one, almost her whole existence. Trying to be someone she's not in order to please others ultimately took a toll on her. In her talk, she will reveal how she took off the chains that bound her. Let's give a hand to Lily Zhao.
The truth is, many of us, especially women, try so hard to please. And because of this, we live in a perpetual state of overwhelm, exhaustion, and bitterness because we can't say no. How many of you can relate? Women are more prone to people pleasing than men. We love to support, help, and be there when others need us. It makes us feel good. It feeds our self-worth. We're there for our families, friends, and colleagues to a point that we have very little time for ourselves. We take on work we don't need or go to events we don't care about. But why? Why do we struggle to say no? Because we fear being judged, being rejected, and being disliked. And sometimes we say yes to avoid disappointing those around us. We start to hide behind an emotional mask. Unlike physical mask, wearing an emotional mask harms us. And yet, so many people are hiding behind it. Many of us are hiding behind who we truly are and who we want to be. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. When I was just 5 years old, I was ashamed of myself, ashamed of who I was. I was brutally beaten by my kindergarten teacher for expressing myself. I had bruises all over my body. I felt like there was something wrong with me. I became desperate to feel safe. And that day, I lost a part of me. That true self, that curious, creative, and playful Lily. And instead, I learned to be someone else. At the age of 10, growing up in Japan as the only Chinese kid, all I wanted to do was to fit in. But that never happened. Instead, I got bullied constantly in elementary school. I felt rejected. I felt like I didn't belong. From that time, everywhere I go, I felt like I was an outsider. More than wanting to fit in, I wanted to please my mother. I needed her approval, her validation. I wanted to know that I was good enough for her love. But when I didn't get good grades, I couldn't face her. I would hide my report card underneath the bed, fearing to disappoint my mother. I learned to be hard on myself. When I was 15, it got worse. What is worse than physical bullying? Cyberbullying. Cyberbullying was another level of pain I've never felt in my life. I got messages that said, "You're stupid. You're ugly. Nobody likes you." And as a teenager, I believed them. Those words were stuck in my head. I felt like my heart was being squeezed so tight I could barely breathe. I was in pain. I couldn't stop crying for weeks. I needed help. My mask was eating me alive. From then on, I did whatever I could to avoid the pain, that pain of being disliked. I kept on seeking acceptance and approval. I even started posting photos of myself showing my cleavage on social media just to get the external validation, chasing that like button to feed my own insecurity. I became desperate and craved validation, that I was liked, that I was enough, or that I was nice. The truth is, wanting to be liked by others was my symptoms of my own desire to be in control, because deep down, I felt powerless and worthless. I woke up one day not knowing who I was. I had a crisis, an identity crisis. I was emotionally bankrupt. My self-esteem, self-worth, self-respect were all bankrupt as a result of people-pleasing. People-pleasing got me the life I never wanted. I said to myself, enough was enough. I realized that constantly betraying myself is suicide. Why? By avoiding to betray others, I betrayed myself. And this is the ultimate form of betrayal. People-pleasing goes beyond just kindness. It involves bending my values for the sake of someone else's feeling. And by trying to earn acceptance of others, I lost myself in the process. I decided that if I can't get the validation from others, I'm going to give myself the validation I deserve and approve myself. At that moment, something shifted. I started treating myself like my own best friend. I started to talk to myself like I would talk to my best friend. And every time I say something hurtful or demeaning, I would pause and ask myself, would I say that to my best friend? And if the answer is no, I cancel that thought immediately. And guess what? It started working. That validation and approval I've always craved for, I gave that to myself. This is self-love. What kind of relationship do you have with yourself? Yes, it is a relationship. In fact, it is the most important relationship you will ever have. We have to face ourselves in the mirror every single day until we die. So let's make a great one. But self-love is not just a feeling. It is an ongoing action. Let me share with you some of the ways you can practice self-love. Your greatest responsibility for self-love is to know that you are enough. Keep an I am good enough journal and add it to it daily. Be persistent, because few words repeated daily becomes a belief. And take a note every time you're hard on yourself. We all have those moments. It's okay. When you are, treat yourself like your own best friend. Set clear boundary for you. Daring to set boundary is about having the courage to love yourself, even when we risk disappointing others. Your time and energy are precious. So stand for your value, your heart, and your life. Assign one day. I made Saturday my self-care day. Nothing is on that calendar that day. Practice saying no without guilt. This will give you freedom. Freedom to go on a date with yourself. Discover what makes you feel alive and joyful. Go lunch, have a beautiful walk. Whatever it is, give that attention, support, and love to you. But more important than this is your mindset. When you say yes to anything, you're saying no to something else. So next time, before you say yes, pause and ask yourself, if I'm saying yes to this, what am I saying no to? Start saying yes to you. When you say no to something you don't want to do, you say yes to you. When you turn off your social media and go on a date with yourself, you say yes to you. When you say no to comparing yourself to others, you say yes to you. Say yes to you. It took some time, but I realized that in order to have the courage to say no, I have to love myself first. I finally took off my mask and started creating more fulfilling life with self-love. And now that my mask is gone, I'm still on a journey to find who Lily was. That playful, curious, and creative side that I lost when I was 5 years old. So I invite you to put you first. Putting your own needs first is not selfish. In fact, you will show up more fulfilled, replenished, and more love for others. Remember, if we don't take care of ourselves first, we won't be able to do anything for anyone else. You, yourself, as much as anyone in this universe, deserve your love. Give that to you. Start saying yes to you now. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Thank you.
A lifelong learner who has been in the education sector for more than 3 decades, our final speaker has constantly compared the differences between the Chinese and Western education systems. A recent experience has made her look beyond her profession into sentiments and emotions. And in this talk, she examines and compares love as it exists between the Chinese and Western expressions and between generations. Let's give a warm welcome to Becky Xu.
Many of us see love just as an emotion. We think of love as a deep affection for another person, but we forget that it is also action that comes as a result of the emotion. Seeing love only as an emotion makes it very difficult to recognize love from people that say they love us, or people they don't say it, but show it in different ways. When we appreciate that love comes in the form of action, motivated by deep affection, we can begin to appreciate the different ways that people love us. My Asian culture is quite restrained and implicit. Where I'm from, love often equals responsibilities. Anything outside of this was considered frivolities. I was born in an ordinary family in Shanghai. My father is an engineer, my mother is a teacher, and the family has always been harmonious since I was a little girl. However, in my family, apart from the Chinese New Year, my birthday, my brother's birthday, we never celebrate anything else. I never ever remember the days like my parents' birthday, anniversaries, or Valentine's Day. Because my parents never saw love as a celebration. Instead, they saw love as a responsibility. In middle school, I studied a prose called The View of My Father's Back by the famous Chinese writer, Mr. Zhu Ziqing. In this prose, Mr. Zhu writes about his father seeing him off the train station. And when they get there, his father first makes a fuss of asking the attendants to take good care of his son during the journey. His father then goes through the trouble of getting him tangerines before he eventually leaves the station. As Mr. Zhu watches his father's back leaving the station, tears rush to his eyes. In that story, the love that father can give to his son is the moment when he buys tangerines in a hurry, while Mr. Zhu's love is silently looking back with tears in his eyes. Between them, no words are said. They didn't have to say it out loud. They loved each other. My parents' traditional view about love is a responsibility to give. They give us food, shelter, clothing, and all the good things. They give us their time and even give themselves to children's families too. They're like firefighters because they're usually the ones putting out problems. They babysit for their kids, cook, teach, and sometimes become the bank. That is how our parents told us that they love us. Now that I'm no longer a little girl, I find that I have also adopted my parents' style of expressing love. However, I've taken it a little further than just one-sided responsibility. Let me tell you about Jessica. Jessica is the daughter of a friend. She lived in my home for 4 months while her visa issues were being sorted out. At first, I was very confused about the right approach to being a temporary parent to a girl who was used to being spoiled by 6 adults, her 2 parents and 4 grandparents from her Asian background. The first and the obvious choice was to give her everything, spoil her even. And this is similar to the love that my parents showed me. But I realized that this responsibility to give was one-sided, so I opted for the second and less obvious choice. This choice was to give, but also help her become more mature by guiding her to learn some housework, such as vacuuming, cleaning the bathroom, cooking noodles, and so on. You see, I knew that Jessica had never done anything like that before. So I wanted to teach her a different way to be independent and to care for herself in the future. If I'm being honest, this second choice of showing Jessica love scared me a little because I was afraid of how her parents would feel or that she herself would feel that she was being treated unfairly. Fortunately, it all worked out well because in those 4 months, I started seeing clean bathrooms and spotless kitchen counters. I showed Jessica love beyond just the responsibility to give her the things she needed. I taught and guided her. Jessica, in turn, showed me love by being more responsible with our shared space. Now, we have gained the trust and the respect for each other. In turn, she makes me amazing homemade sweet desserts and gives really good hugs. The differences in the ways that we express love doesn't just cut across different cultures, it cuts across generations. This year, when the COVID-19 broke out, the whole family stayed together. On 14th of February, Valentine's Day, my son Jordan told us that he had ordered a dinner downtown for a special evening. He had booked it 2 weeks ago and hoped that his mom and dad could have the experience of romantic holiday. That happened to be our first romantic candlelight dinner for Valentine's Day ever. My husband and I typically do not celebrate much, and apart from birthdays, other festivals are not paid special attention to in our family. He believes that we do not live on anniversaries or festivals. He believes that when we need to be happy, we do not have to wait for festivals. We can celebrate anytime. But to my son Jordan, love equals celebration of even the smallest things. This is his generation's way of showing love to parents and even themselves. Although it's different from how either I or my husband express love or are used to receiving love, we recognized his gesture for what it was, and that is an action motivated by his deep affection for us, and that is love. So we choose to respect and enjoy it anyway. Observing and appreciating the different ways that people express love has been very exciting for me. But something I find even more exciting than that is the different ways that people identify love. Believe me, it's different. When I was 7 years old, my father took me to his workplace in another city for a week. I already knew a bit about my father's job and how large his factory was. But that was the first time that I ever left home to see the real world. I got to attend the company's big New Year celebration. We boarded a huge ship and I got to eat a lot of seafood. I can still remember every detail of what I saw, what I smelled, and how curious I was, even though it was 45 years ago. From my perspective, even as a little girl, that was love. My parents giving me experiences that I would never forget and showing me the world was more important than giving me a bank. As I've grown older, I've continued to observe the different ways that we show and receive love. I've seen the difference between the way my generation shows love and the way my son's generation shows love. It's all very beautiful and incredibly fascinating. In romantic relationships, there's a term for this, and it's called love language. Love experts believe that there are certain actions and behaviors that a person would only show if they love you, and that they would interpret as love if their partner exhibited these behaviors. These behaviors could be as little as a good morning text, or as flashy as a new Prada boots. I think that this concept in a much broader sense can be applied beyond romance to non-romantic relationships. Not only should we express love in our own personalized way, but we should also be patient with others and try to understand and appreciate the language of love that they speak and understand. Love is love. And different people give and receive love in different ways. Whatever it looks like, as long as it's not harmful. You and I can still receive and appreciate whatever it looks like from whomever it is. Please give, accept, respect, trust, and enjoy love. My husband has promised that for next year's Valentine's Day, he would be inviting me to a fancy place for dinner. It's a new expression of love for us, and we are both very excited about that.
And that concludes our fourth and final session for the event. Ladies and gentlemen, what a day. I am sure that you have all emerged with renewed enthusiasm and determination, ready to face your tomorrow fearlessly. Thank you to our speakers and the team at TEDxKerrisdale. Thank you again to eXp Realty, who presented this event. And thank you to our sponsors, Leaders of Tomorrow Academy, Manning Elliott Accountants, Comma Naturals, Fueling with Flavor, and Leaders Media. And thank you to our audience for participating and for giving us your time and attention. We hope you found this event interesting and informational, but we can't dismiss these talks as a form of entertainment. This is our wake-up call. So let's call upon our collective fearlessness to create a global step forward together.